Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my power ranking series. For my number 19 team, we're going to be looking at the Arizona Cardinals. Okay, so this team lost a decent amount of talent going into free agency, and they did get some pieces. So let's kind of start going through that. Tackle duo still here: DJ Humphries, Kelvin Beachum. Humphries, pretty good left tackle. He's, I don't know, probably top 16 at left. If I had to guess, maybe top 20. We'll see. I haven't counted each individual position, but he's up there. He's pretty solid. Beecham lacks ability in the run game, but they play more of an air raid offense here, so his shorter stature as well as his ability in pass protection basically make up what they're looking for at right tackle. So that's kind of where he's starting, and he fits that mold pretty well. So I expect quality play. They do have Jones as a backup tackle. He was kind of interesting as a prospect. Haven't really seen much of him. They tried him a little at guard, didn't overly work. We'll see how they use him. Could be as a swing tackle, but they don't run out of traditional sets too often. Another guy they grabbed that was interesting to me was Marquise Hayes, the rookie. I thought he was like a prototypical downhill running tap guard, and I thought he was really good at it. I was super high on him. Uh, for him to be here is a little weird, if that makes sense. I don't understand how he fits their air raid mentality, but maybe I could be proven wrong here. Maybe it works. I liked the talent, so we'll see how that works. They still have Justin Pugh here, kind of a solid veteran guard at this point of his career. He's on the downswing, but he's still decent enough. Rodney Hudson also probably going to start his descent eventually. Still a very good center though, still probably a top center in the league. They got him for very little as well, so they've done some work here to get some help. You know, Hernandez was someone they picked up this last offseason, was originally a little not highly touted, but higher touted, and that's dropped off pretty hard over the last season and a bit. So we'll see how he performs here. But again, they're at least making attempts to make this line better. Kyler Murray is, we'll just say he's an exceptional athlete. He does have some issues at certain points in the field, but he has the capability of making all throws. It's the biggest question is, can this offense finally just click and actually like plan and scheme things up? Because we saw how quickly this team unraveled last year. They started very hot, and then it basically all just fell apart at the seams. They had no game planning. They just barely snuck into the playoffs, in my opinion, and then they just got smacked by a far superior team. It just wasn't close to me. They also have extreme discipline issues, but we'll get to that in a little bit. So there is reason for Kyler Murray to be unhappy with the current situation. We'll see how that plays out. His uncertainty does hurt their rating a little bit. He is committing to the Cardinals, which I think is probably the smarter idea. But we're in a wait and see on how this works out this season. I'm a little worried that this is all going to come crashing down quite hard. Not to mention when they gave extensions to the guys who have kind of put them in this situation. A little interesting. Maybe they can prove the narrative wrong as well, but I'm a little hesitant to rank them higher. Receiving options, pretty good. Hopkins, obviously the big superstar here, extreme hand-eye coordination to an insane degree. I mean, he had a season with no drops. There's that to behold. There's tons of great catches that have all been just posterized everywhere. I mean, guy is insane in that ability, and his route running pairs pretty well with it. Not having him for the first few weeks also really hurts their rankings. We'll see how they can manage. Hopefully, they can at least sneak out a few wins. AJ Green is here. He's not much. He's kind of a shell of himself at this point. It happens when you get older, but he'll still be a contributor. Rondale Moore will be taking some reps here in the slot and as a gadget weapon. I love him here. I think that was a smart decision by this Cardinals front office. I think he is a exception at that wide receiver position. Sitting at, I think he's a 5'7", if I remember correctly. I think he's an exceptional player, and I think he is an exception to the typical rule of how these wide receivers are typically built. So I do like that move here. Getting Marquise Brown, who Kyler is super familiar with, not a bad idea, although you paid a premium to do it, which there is that to be said, and you do have to pay him as well. So we'll see how that works out, but I like getting Brown here to help stretch the field, and that getting him should help cover up the hurt of missing Hopkins a little bit early on, especially if it does keep Kyler happy, and then you get something going on offense, and you can kind of extend both and get things moving. There's there is some reason to be excited about this move. Running back James Conner was productive last season. I'm not a huge fan of the contract they gave him. It's a little long, in my opinion. Also, for a guy who's such a power back to be functioning in an air raid offense is very awkward. I don't mind that he's here. It makes me question why he's like the only running back here, so to speak. You know what I mean? Like they haven't unleashed Eno Benjamin at all. They don't really have much else to really lean on, at least passing wise, or at least anything proven. So it's a little weird for me to look at this and be like, I feel okay with their scheme and what they have here. This is a fat old question mark for me. I don't understand quite what we're going to be looking at. You're going to have to hope Connor basically has another season that he had last time and powers through a lot of tackles. Tight end, another one that was really long. They gave Zach Ertz a long contract, and it's not cheap either. Only then draft my top tight end and Trey McBride. I love McBride. I think he should be starting here. You should have let Zach Ertz collect that money elsewhere and get that starting time for McBride, but that's not what they did. So they basically have put Zach Ertz back in the same situation that made him unhappy in Philadelphia, where he had Goddard just looming over his shoulder, and now he's got Trey McBride looming over his shoulder. At least maybe by the time Ertz's contract is done, he'll at least be hanging up the cleats this time, maybe make him a little less unhappy. But just I don't know. There's been some choices on this offense. I'm like, I can see why you did that, and then there's other ones where I'm like, I don't quite understand where the thought process was here. You're There's gonna have to be some pretty good leaps in ability and logic for me to fully grasp what is happening here and for it to actually be productive on field. Defensive front seven lost a lot of talent. I mean, you didn't want to pay Chandler Jones as much as the Raiders had paid him, but man, it hurts looking at this. I mean, Kennard here is kind of your hybrid guy. He drops into coverage a lot. Golden's your more traditional rusher. He's a decent rusher. He's good on rotational snaps, but man, to rely on him this heavy, a little concerning. They drafted kind of a tweener in Cam Thomas. He's too light to kind of put down, kind of like how Marvin Leal is. Put him down in the interior, so he's going to be taking most of the snaps on the edge. We'll see how they get that to work. He has moments of extreme productivity, but you also see that in the division he played, it was mostly a lot of his length coming on the inside or stunting, so maybe they can get something going there, but that's a little bit of an awkward thing to project. Majai Sanders was a guy actually I was super high on. I was much higher on than consensus. I had him up in the later second round. I think most consensus had him early fourth, maybe late third. And I actually think he fits this scheme overly well. I think he can be productive early on. I don't know how high his ceiling can be. I definitely think he brings a good floor though, and I think he can take some snaps at edge sooner rather than later as well. On the interior, it's rough again. JJ Watt's the guy who, I mean, he's past the point of him being a superstar. But he is good. He's still productive when he's on the field. He has a long injury history. I doubt you get maybe more than 10 weeks of out of him, which is totally fine. I mean, some guys that is all you get out of them, and that's fine. But the guys you have to back that up, and I mean, Zach Allen, like you Fotu is your nose tackle here. It's just it. I don't think the talent is here to overcome a lot of having JJ Watt not play the full season. You need JJ Watt to overcome his injury history to get that full season. So you're hoping and praying for that. I hope so as well. I don't want to see Watt hurt anymore. He's still a good player. Packers. I liked the Zaven Collins pick. He's kind of an anomaly at linebacker, sitting at that like 6'3", 6'4" range. Moves pretty well, especially in coverage. I like that move a lot for this defense, especially with what Vance Joseph actually does. And then I have Isaiah Simmons listed as just backer because he kind of plays this weird middling role. It's kind of almost what Jabril Peppers was also released as in college, where he basically just plays whatever your idea of middle is. It's kind of what we originally thought Roquan was going to be kind of like. Roquan's shown a little bit more development. He's bulked up a little bit since then. But he plays a lot of his middle. He'll cover the tight end when one-on-one. He can range sideline to sideline. He needs other guys to take on blockers head on so he can kind of blitz through the gaps to play run defense. That's kind of something about his size. But he's kind of an anomaly as an athlete. So there is something to be said here about talent, at least at the linebacker position. But when you look elsewhere, it starts to decrease off, and then of course there's Watt, who is still a great player, but you need him to have an injury-free history season, which just hasn't happened in recent time. Defensive backs here have gotten interesting. I think Buda Baker is absolutely still a star player. A lot of people really just have a hard time ranking safeties, even if they aren't conscious of it. I think non-flashy, non-turnovers mean, player bad, so to speak, which is just not the case. I mean, you have to look at coverage grades. You have to look at how often they're blitzing, how often they're in the box, what's their role in that defense. Safeties are super nuanced in how they play, and Buda Baker still does his to a elite level. You got both the Thompsons here, which are fine if you want to bring Buda down as a almost sub linebacker in a way, and then leave those guys kind of up top. So you have like Buda Baker maybe blitz off the edge and like a big nickel look, so to speak. So there's ways to get these guys to work all in the field at the same time. The Thompsons are just okay, solid safeties. Nothing really else to say about them. They're just decent. There is Byron Murphy. He's the best corner here. Not even close. They're listing him mostly at slot. That is where he's had most of his productivity in the league. And I think it's fine to leave him here. I mean, I think the league has started expanding its mind more of letting their best corner take the slot or follow guys around a lot more, which I'm completely content with. I think Byron Murphy fits that role well, and I think he can do that at a decent level at the NFL. It drops off pretty steadily after, though. Marco Wilson, I actually did like his tape, and I think he fits this defense well. However, he has discipline issues, as shown by some of the penalties he's gotten in college, which on this team is a problem because this team is very undisciplined and is not trained to be disciplined. They are the most penalized team in the league and have been up there consistently um, in the time that this coaching staff has taken over. So there is reason to be concerned there. And then on top of that, starting Antonio Hamilton, unlike the Colts, have not gotten my benefit of the doubt of who they can start at corner. So Hamilton's really going to have to step up big for me to feel okay with him taking significant starts and time at that spot. It's going to be iffy. It could be a rough season for the Cards, although thankfully you do have, some elite players on offense to overcome some of the shortcomings and to maybe make some magic work. On top of that, also playing in a weaker conference might allow you to make a push again, but I don't know how far you can realistically push with there being this many holes and the discipline issues on top of that. I don't see how you could really expect this to be a far-reaching season, but I think as a turnaround season, you are decently happy with what has been done. You need to see a lot more work on defense, though. Teams and coaching, the special teams are fine. Prater's still got a very good leg, although it's probably going to start declining eventually. He is getting up there in age. Andy Lee, fine punter. It's often sits somewhere in the middle for me. Coordinators, the only one I'm really high on is Vance Joseph. I like the defensive coordination that he does and what he calls. I think the weapons he does get when they were all there is part of the reason why the Cardinals function so well. Is Joseph really knows how to deploy this kind of hybrid 3-4 defense. Um, But the real issue is really the fact that these guys are so penalized, they're so uncoordinated and so undisciplined, and that has been that way for a while now. And usually you look at the head coach and ask why, and he just hasn't seemed to change anything about it. Cliff Kingsbury has, I don't know what he's quite done here, so to speak. Yes, they made the playoffs and had one of the worst showing in the playoffs that I've seen in a good recent era. It is questionable to me to think that he could be the future of this team when I see a head coach that really doesn't seem to have a real identity or a culture established. It's been long enough that those things should really be already there now. I mean, Dan Campbell was able to do it in 1 year. So for the multiple years have passed and we're still kind of just sitting and waiting. I'm a little iffy on what is happening, especially with I'm when I say I'm looking at the penalty numbers and they're often well ahead of most people on a week to week basis on how often that team is penalized. And most of the time it's for real dumb things. I can't blame the refs on most of these. Be like, okay, well maybe the ref missed saw, or maybe it was a ticky tack thing, the ref giving it back for another ticky tack thing they took on the other side. Maybe it's something like that. No, it's on stuff that is blatant and should not be getting called on as often as it is. I worry, especially now they've given extensions. I worry that this team is going to self implode if this is not a productive season, which I think they are banking way too much on this season alone. This team is not ready to make a push in any idea, just not at all. I like some of the players here. I even like one of the coordinators, but I don't see how even in a weaker conference this team is ready for a Super Bowl run in any idea. Like even the Bengals, who I don't think many people had making the Super Bowl last year, were a more ready Super Bowl team than this team. Like not even close. It worries me going into the season what could be the fallout of what happens. So overall, I do think I am being quite kind with this ranking for the Cardinals. They have lost a lot of talent in last year, and they really haven't shown me any ability to kind of change their errors. I said that they're so penalized. They play undisciplined. They play frustrated, and we saw it last year in the actual playoffs. You could see Kyler's clearly frustrated. The play calling is just weird. It's not. It doesn't seem very in structure. I just don't understand why this is with all this ability we have, all these tools, we are still sticking with this just kind of more poor idea of just kind of we'll make it work. That kind of seems to be the idea here. We'll make it work, and I that's not a plan going into a season. So I hope that this season they have something a little bit more concrete to work on, and hopefully they can finally, after years, get those penalties down. So with that being said, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope I'll see you all next time. Later.